Hola, ¿cómo están ustedes? Today you're going to learn a little something different about the subjunctive. In previous lessons, you've learned the subjunctive with influence, subjunctive with doubt and denial, and the subjunctive with emotion. Today you're going to learn a usage of the subjunctive that's a little bit different than what you have learned. And the name of this is the subjunctive with adjective clauses. Let's learn about this. Okay, first of all, an adjective clause. Let's talk about what an adjective clause is. Okay, consider these sentences. I have a big dog. I have a big dog. I have a dog that barks. Okay, notice that the clause in the second one functions like an adjective in the first. The first sentence is a simple sentence. I have a big dog. The second sentence is a more complex sentence. It has two verbs in it. I have, and it has barks. I have a dog that barks. The sentence is divided by the word that, which is a conjunction. Now, the second part of the sentence, that barks, functions like an adjective. It describes what the dog does. So it describes the dog right there. Okay, this is an example of an adjective clause. Remember, clause is a sentence, and an adjective clause is a sentence that functions like an adjective. It describes. So it describes what the dog does. An antecedent. Let's talk about what an antecedent is. Since this is a Spanish class, we have to learn a little bit about grammar, and we get to learn what antecedents are. The noun modified by the adjective clause is called the antecedent. What on earth is Professor Schenk talking about? Let's talk about it. I have an uncle that sells cars. The word uncle is who I'm talking about. It's the person I'm referring to, right? That's called an antecedent. An antecedent is something that you're referring to in a sentence. The adjective clause that sells cars describes what your uncle does, okay? So an adjective clause describes an antecedent. In other words, it describes something in the first part of the sentence. We want a government that represents us, okay? What is our antecedent? It's government. That's what we're describing. What is the description of the government? What does it do? It represents us. So represents us is the adjective clause that describes your antecedent, government. You guys with me on this so far? Hope so. Okay, in adjective clauses, if your antecedent, in other words, the thing you're describing, is definite or specific, in other words, if it exists, you use the indicative. You don't use any subjunctive. Tengo un amigo que juega tenis. I have a friend who plays tennis. Okay, how do I know that this amigo exists, that he's a real person? By the word tengo. Tengo means I have. Since I have one, he exists. So I say what he does using the present tense. Juega is the present indicative. If your antecedent, in other words, the thing that you're talking about, is indefinite or hypothetical, maybe exists, maybe doesn't, you use the subjunctive. Necesito un amigo que juegue fútbol. I need a friend who plays soccer. Okay, so how do I know that this amigo may or may not exist? Well, the word necesito means I need. Since I'm saying I need, this person may or may not exist. They're not definite. Okay, so everything that's used to describe this person in the adjective clause has to be in the subjunctive, because remember, the main focus of the subjunctive is to describe things that may or may not be. That's why we call it the subjunctive mood and not the subjunctive tense, because it describes something that may or may not exist, that's hypothetical. Let's talk about these sentences. I have a friend who plays soccer. Okay, is that going to be subjunctive or not? If you thought not subjunctive, you're correct. Tengo un amigo que juega al fútbol. I need a friend who plays chess. I'm looking for someone playing chess, right? So I need a friend. Do they exist? No, because I need them. They don't exist right now, as far as I know. So necesito un amigo que juegue al ajedrez. She wants a house that is small. Okay, think about what this means. She wants. So does she have it? Does that house exist? Nope, we're not referring to any house in particular. She wants one. So it's indefinite. It's maybe exists, maybe doesn't. Okay, so everything that describes that house is going to be in the subjunctive. Ella quiere una casa que sea pequeña. He bought a house that is huge. So subjunctive or no subjunctive? Correct. No subjunctive because he bought a house. Okay, since he bought it, it exists. So you're going to say, él compró una casa que es enorme. No subjunctive. They know an actor who sings. Okay, if you know somebody, then they exist. Ellos conocen a un actor que canta. Do you know an actor who sings? Now notice the tone of my voice. I'm unsure. This person may or may not exist. Okay, so if I say, do you know somebody who does something? In my mind, I don't know who they are. Okay, so I'm going to use the subjunctive to describe them. ¿Conoces a un actor que cante? I want a job that interests me. Subjunctive or not? Well, you're referring to this job, right? Does this job exist? No, it does not, because I want a job. Okay, so subjunctive. Yo quiero un trabajo que me interese. Okay, so whenever you're doing anything with these adjective clauses, look for the wording in the first part of the sentence. Look for cues like the verb tener, to have, or anything that indicates that it actually exists. Okay, and then look for something that's ambiguous, that makes it, so maybe it does, maybe it doesn't exist. It's indefinite. You can tell by the wording that will affect the second part of the sentence. Once again, going back to the previous examples, necesito un amigo que juegue fútbol. In order to use the subjunctive, you need a trigger. Still, it's not the same thing that you guys learned before, right? It's kind of similar, but the way you use it is a little bit different, okay? Because it all depends on what your intention is. The trigger is that this friend does not exist, not yet, we don't know, okay? That's your trigger. And the word necesito helps cause that trigger to happen, okay? Again, this does not exist in English. These are not concepts we have, but it's extremely important in Spanish because it's used very frequently. All right, so let's move on to doing some practice exercises with subjunctive versus indicative in adjective clauses.